The stars looked peaceful from the bridge of the ESS Tiguk. Captain Hunsu had been exploring the outer edges of the solar system for 3 months now. His crew of 45 people were tired but excited. They were the first humans to map the Kuiper Belt in detail. Every day brought new discoveries, ice formations, ancient rocks, and mysteries waiting to be solved. Then the scanners picked up something strange. "Captain, I'm reading multiple contact," said the sensor operator, his voice shaking. "They're big. Really big." Hunsu leaned forward in his chair. On the main screen, 12 massive ships appeared out of nowhere. They were silver and shaped like crescents, each one at least 3 times larger than his vessel. Strange symbols glowed along their hulls in colors he had never seen before. "Try to communicate," Hunsu ordered, keeping his voice calm even though his heart was racing. Before they could send a message, the alien ships surrounded them. A beam of light shot from the largest vessel and connected to the Tiguk. Every screen on the bridge flickered and changed. An image appeared, a tall creature with 4 arms and skin that looked like polished stone. Its eyes were bright yellow and cold. "Primitive species of Sol 3, the alien said in perfect English. "You have been discovered by the Velthari Galactic Empire. Your world will submit to our rule. You have 30 of your solar rotations to accept. Resistance will result in your extinction." The transmission ended. The alien ships vanished as quickly as they had appeared, leaving the Tiguk alone in the darkness. Hunsu stood frozen for a moment. Then he turned to his communications officer. "Get me Earth, get me everyone. They need to know what just happened." The news spread across Earth within hours. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and they had just been given an ultimatum by an empire that had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Admiral Dae-jung was in his office at the United Defense Fleet headquarters in Geneva when the call came. He was a hard man with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. Now he was looking at another one, but this time the enemy came from the stars. The World Council assembled in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered in one room, their faces pale with fear. They watched the recording of the Velthari message over and over. "What do we know about them?" asked the Secretary General. Chief Scientist Mina stepped forward. She was young but brilliant, one of the best minds humanity had. Her team had been analyzing every second of the encounter. "The Velthari are incredibly advanced," she began, pulling up images on the large screen. "Their ships use technology we can barely understand. Plasma weapons, energy shields, faster-than-light engines that work better than anything we have. Based on their message and the data we collected, they've been doing this for a very long time." "How long?" someone asked. 12,000 years, maybe more. They've conquered hundreds of worlds. They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 200 combat-ready vessels, and none of them are as powerful as a single Velthari warship." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. "So we have no choice," the Secretary General said quietly. "We must submit." "No." The voice came from the back of the room. Commander Taewon stepped forward. He was a soldier, a leader of Earth's Special Operations Forces. His face was scarred from a dozen battles. "We always have a choice." "What choice?" someone shouted. "They'll destroy us." "Maybe," Taewon said. "Or maybe they expect us to roll over without a fight." "Mina, you said they've been doing this for 12,000 years. What does that tell you?" Mina thought for a moment. "They're experienced." "Said in their ways, exactly. They're old, comfortable. They expect every species to react the same way, with fear and surrender." Taewon looked around the room. "We're new. We're desperate. We have nothing to lose. That makes us dangerous." Admiral Dae-jung stood up. "He's right. I've reviewed the tactical data. The Velthari fight like a species that hasn't faced real opposition in centuries. Their formations are predictable. Their tactics follow patterns. They're powerful, yes, but they've forgotten how to fight an enemy that refuses to follow the rules." Mina nodded slowly. "We can't beat them with technology. But we might beat them with unpredictability, with chaos, with tactics they've never seen before." The debate raged for hours. Some argued for peace at any cost. Others wanted to fight. In the end, they took a vote. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would not bow. The next few weeks were frantic. Every factory on Earth switched to military production. Every ship was armed. Every satellite became a weapon platform. Mina and her team worked day and night. designing new weapons based on old principles. Kinetic projectiles, electromagnetic pulses. Anything that didn't rely on technology, the Velthari could easily counter. Commander Tae-wan trained special forces teams for missions no one wanted to think about. Boarding actions, sabotage, last stands. Admiral Daejung coordinated the defense of Earth. He knew they couldn't win a straight fight, so he wouldn't give them one. He positioned ships in hiding spots throughout the solar system. Behind the moon, inside asteroid fields, anywhere they wouldn't be detected until it was too late. When the 30th day arrived, the Velthari returned. Their scout vessel approached Earth orbit, broadcasting the same message. It demanded Earth's surrender. The response came from Admiral Daejung himself, broadcast on all frequencies so the entire galaxy could hear. People of the Velthari Empire, this is Admiral Daejung of Earth's United Defense Fleet. We have considered your offer. Our answer is no. We will not submit. We will not bow. If you want our world, you'll have to take it. And we promise you this. We will make you pay for every meter. The alien scout ship turned and left without another word. On Earth, people watched the skies and waited. They knew what was coming. War. A war that would decide the fate of humanity. Parents held their children. Soldiers checked their weapons one last time. Scientists ran final calculations. And in the darkness between the stars, the Velthari battle fleet began its journey to Earth. 300 warships, enough to conquer a dozen worlds. Their commander, Fleetmaster Grenax, was confident. This would be quick. This would be easy. He had no idea that everything was about to change. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened humanity's home. Fleetmaster Grenax stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on his screens. The blue and green planet looked beautiful and fragile. It would be his easiest conquest yet. 300 warships against a single world species, his second-in-command said. They should have surrendered. Pride, Grenax replied. These humans have pride. We will break it. And then they will serve the Empire like all the others. The Velthari fleet entered Earth's orbit in perfect formation. Their ships moved like a school of fish, each one in its assigned place. It was a formation they had used for thousands of years. It had never failed. Grenax sent out his scanners looking for the human fleet. He expected to find them clustered around their planet, protecting their cities and their people. He found nothing. Where are they? He demanded. Sensors show no contacts, Fleetmaster. The orbit is empty. Grenax felt a cold touch of worry. Empty space meant nothing. The humans had to be somewhere. Expand the search. Check the satellites. Check their moon. Find them. On the dark side of Earth's moon, Admiral Daejung watched his display. The Velthari fleet was exactly where he wanted them, confused and clustered together. All units, this is Admiral Daejung, he said calmly into his communicator. Execute Phase 1. From the lunar surface, 50 small fighters launched into space. They were tiny compared to the massive Velthari warships, barely larger than a private jet. Captain Sang-woo led the attack wave, his hands steady on the controls. Remember, he told his pilots, we're not here to win. We're here to distract them. Keep moving. Don't follow patterns. Make them think. The fighters burst around the moon and accelerated toward the Velthari fleet. They moved in wild, random patterns, spinning, diving, climbing. Their movements made no sense. There was no formation, no tactical purpose that the Velthari could understand. Contacts, the Velthari sensor operator shouted. 50 small craft approaching at high speed. Grenax laughed. 50? They sent 50 fighters against 300 warships? Open fire. Destroy them all. The Velthari ships turned their weapons on the human fighters. Plasma bolts lit up space. The fighters dodged and weaved, their small size and erratic movements making them hard to hit. 3 were destroyed in the first volley, then 5 more. But while the Velthari focused on the fighters, they didn't notice the real threat. In her command center deep beneath Geneva, Mina watched her screen and counted down. 3, 2, 1, activate. Around Earth's orbit, thousands of objects came to life. They looked like space debris, chunks of metal, broken satellites, asteroid fragments. The Velthari scanners had dismissed them as junk. They were wrong. Each piece of junk was actually a kinetic mine. Simple technology, just metal accelerated to incredible speeds. No shields, no guidance systems, no energy signature, just mass and velocity. The Velthari shields were designed to stop plasma and energy weapons. They were useless against chunks of metal, moving at a significant fraction of light speed. Mines activated their tiny thrusters and flew toward the Velthari fleet. The first mine hit a warship near the front of the formation. It punched through the shield like it wasn't there and tore through the hull. The ship's reactor exploded, sending shrapnel into 2 nearby vessels. Then the rest of the mines arrived. Space became a storm of metal and fire. The Velthari ships tried to scatter, but they were too close together. Their perfect formation became a trap. 30 warships died in the first minute. Then 40. Then 50. Evasive maneuvers. Grenak screamed. All ships scatter! Return fire! But return fire at what? The mines were simple metal. They had no engines to target, no systems to disable, and the human fighters were still darting around, adding to the chaos. Lieutenant Yuna pulled her fighter soul's pride through a gap between 2 Velthari ships. Her camera was recording everything. She saw alien crew members running through corridors that were venting into space. She saw ships colliding with each other as they tried to escape. She saw the mighty Velthari fleet falling apart. They're panicking, she said into her communicator. Admiral, they're actually panicking. Admiral Dae-jung allowed himself a small smile. Phase 2. All ships attack now. From hiding spots throughout the solar system, the rest of Earth's fleet appeared. They came from behind asteroids, from inside ice fields, from shadows where the Velthari hadn't thought to look. 200 human warships, each one smaller and weaker than a Velthari vessel, but fighting with desperate courage. The Velthari fleet was larger and more powerful, but it was also confused and damaged. The humans swarmed them like wolves attacking a wounded bear. They focused their fire on damaged ships, finishing off cripples before moving to the next target. Captain Sang-woo's fighter group targeted the Velthari sensors and communications arrays. Without good information, the alien fleet couldn't coordinate. Ships received conflicting orders or no orders at all. The battle raged for 6 hours. It was brutal and terrible. Human ships died by the dozens. The Incheon exploded with all hands. The Busan was cut in half by a plasma beam. The Daegu rammed a Velthari cruiser when its weapons failed, taking both ships down in a ball of fire. But for every human ship that died, they took a Velthari vessel with them, and the aliens weren't used to this. They weren't used to enemies who fought like cornered animals. They weren't used to tactics that made no sense. They weren't used to losing. Finally, Fleetmaster Grenax looked at his tactical display and felt fear. He had entered the system with 300 ships. Now he had less than 150, and many of those were damaged. The humans were still coming, still fighting, still refusing to break. Retreat, he said quietly. His officers stared at him. Retreat, he screamed. All ships withdraw. Full speed! The Velthari fleet turned and ran. They left their damaged ships behind. They left their dead. They fled from a species they had called primitive just hours before. As they reached the edge of the system, Grenax sent one final transmission. His voice was shaking. They fight like demons. On Earth, people watched the alien fleet disappear, and then the celebrations began. They had won. Against impossible odds, against a superior enemy, humanity had won its first battle. But Admiral Dae-jung didn't celebrate. He stood in his command center and looked at the casualty reports. 70% of his fleet was gone. Thousands of good people were dead. And this was just the beginning. They'll be back, he said quietly. And next time they'll be ready for us, Mina nodded. Then we need to be ready too. We need to be better, faster, smarter. Commander Taewon cleaned his weapon and looked at the stars. The Velthari had learned something today. They had learned that humanity wouldn't bow. But the real question was, what would the Empire do with that knowledge? In the Imperial Palace, thousands of light years away, Emperor Krathnos received the news of the defeat. His face turned dark with rage. Impossible, he whispered. A single world species defeated a battle fleet? Yes, Emperor, his advisor said, trembling. Fleetmaster Grenax reports that the humans used unconventional tactics. I don't care about tactics. Krathnos stood from his throne. Assemble the Grand Armada. Every ship we have. I want that world crushed. I want those humans to understand what happens when you defy the Empire. The word spread across the galaxy. Humanity, the newcomers, had fought the Velthari and survived. Other species that had lived under the Empire's rule for generations, heard the news and began to whisper. Maybe the Empire wasn't invincible after all. Director Haya Jin stood in the diplomatic chamber of the space station, waiting. She was nervous but didn't show it. Her job was to make friends with aliens that humanity had only just learned existed. No pressure. The door opened and 3 creatures walked in. They were Krelith, tall, covered in blue scales with 3 eyes and hands that had too many fingers. They had been part of the Velthari Empire for 800 years. Director Hyojin, the lead Krelith, said in broken English, "We received your message. We came because we saw what you did." "What we did?" Hyojin asked carefully. "You fought them. You made them bleed. In 800 years, no one has done that." The Krelith leaned forward. "We want to fight too. But we need to know, are you serious? Or will you surrender when things get hard?" Hyojin met his 3-eyed gaze. "Come to Earth. See for yourself." The Krelith delegation spent a week on Earth. They saw the shipyards working day and night. They saw cities preparing for invasion. They saw memorials for the thousands who died in the first battle. And they saw something they hadn't expected: hope. When they left, they weren't alone. They took with them plans, weapons designs, and a promise. Humanity would not fight alone. Deep in a research facility in Seoul, engineer Jin Ho was having the best and worst time of his life. His team had captured a damaged Velthari fighter during the battle. Now they were taking it apart, trying to understand technology that was centuries beyond them. "Look at this," his assistant said, pointing at a device the size of a basketball. "This is their shield generator. One of these can protect an entire ship." Jin Ho studied it carefully. "Can we copy it?" "Not exactly. We don't have the materials or the manufacturing techniques, but..." The assistant smiled. "We can make something similar. It won't be as strong, but it'll work." "How long?" 6 months, maybe. "If we don't sleep," Jin Ho nodded. "Then I guess we're not sleeping. Get me all the coffee in Korea. We have work to do." While diplomats made alliances and engineers built weapons, Commander Tae-wan was fighting a different kind of war. His team of special operators had slipped deep into Velthari territory in a captured alien ship. Their target was a supply depot on the edge of the Empire. It was heavily guarded but poorly defended. The Velthari had never needed strong defenses before. No one attacked them, until now. Tae-wan and his team of 12 moved through the shadows of the depot. They placed charges on fuel tanks, ammunition storage, and the main computer core. They worked in silence, their movements perfect after months of training. "Charges set," one of his soldiers whispered. 2 minutes. They were halfway back to their ship when the alarm went off. Somehow the Velthari had detected them. "Run," Tae-wan ordered. Plasma bolts lit up the darkness. One of his soldiers went down, then another. Tae-wan grabbed a wounded teammate and dragged him toward the ship. Behind them, the charges exploded. The entire depot went up in a ball of fire that lit up the night. They made it to the ship with seconds to spare. As they jumped to hyperspace, Tae-wan looked at his team. They had started with 12. They were down to 8, but the depot was gone. And the Velthari were learning that nowhere was safe anymore. The war spread across a dozen systems. Every week brought new battles. The Velthari won most of them. They were still more powerful, still had more ships. But they were learning that winning came with a price. Pilot Yoonji became a legend across the galaxy. She flew a modified stealth fighter that could hide from most sensors. She would appear out of nowhere, fire her weapons at a Velthari capital ship, and vanish before they could respond. The aliens started calling her the Ghost. They feared her. Good soldiers reported feeling watched. Ships would disappear from patrols. No one felt safe. After each attack, Yoonji would send the same message. Humanity remembers. Emperor Krathnos assembled his greatest war leader, War Prince Zelmoth. The prince was known for his cruelty and his effectiveness. He had conquered 40 worlds without ever losing a battle. "Crush them," the emperor ordered. "Take 5,000 ships, the Grand Armada." "And this embarrassment?" Zelmoth bowed. "It will be done, my emperor. These humans will learn their place in graves." The Grand Armada was the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. 5,000 warships carrying enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. When other species saw it moving, they trembled. But they also saw something else. They saw resistance ships, human and Krelith, harassing the edges of the fleet. They saw sabotage. They saw the mighty Velthari being forced to fight for every light year. The Battle of Tau Ceti was where everything changed. Admiral Daejung knew he couldn't run anymore. The Grand Armada was coming for Earth, and the only way to stop it was to meet it head-on. He gathered every ship humanity had left, 800 vessels. The Krelith added 200 more. 1,000 ships against 5,000. The odds were suicide. Mina came to see him the night before the battle. "I have something," she said. "But it's risky." "Everything is risky now," Daejung replied. She explained her plan. The Velthari networked all their ships together for coordination. It made them efficient, but it also made them vulnerable. If someone could inject a virus into that network, how do we get a virus into their network? Daejung asked. "We already did," Mina smiled. "Remember that fighter we captured? Remember the supply depots Taewon destroyed? We left behind communication equipment, infected equipment. It's been spreading through their network for months. I just need to activate it." The Grand Armada arrived at Tau Ceti expecting an easy victory. What they found was the human fleet waiting for them in a defensive formation around the colony. War Prince Zelmoth laughed when he saw the numbers. They brought 1,000 ships to face 5,000? They're insane. "Shall we destroy them, my lord?" His second asked. "Yes, but slowly. Let them watch their fleet die. Let them understand the cost of defiance." The battle began. The Velthari fleet advanced in perfect formation, their plasma cannons charging. The human fleet opened fire first, but their weapons barely scratched the Velthari shields. Zelmoth was about to order the final assault when his tactical display started acting strange. Ships were showing up in the wrong positions. Communications were garbled. Navigation was giving conflicting readings. "What's happening?" he demanded. Then the virus activated fully. Across the Grand Armada, computer systems went haywire. Friend or foe identification failed. Ships that thought they were targeting humans were actually targeting each other. Navigation systems sent vessels into collision courses. Communication channels filled with garbage data. For 17 minutes, the mighty Grand Armada fought itself. Admiral Daejung watched in amazement as Velthari ships opened fire on each other. It was chaos. It was beautiful. It was their chance. "All ships, attack now. Target the confused vessels. Make every shot count." The human and Krelith fleet surged forward. They picked off ships one by one, focusing fire on vessels that were already damaged or confused. They moved fast, never staying in one place long enough for the Velthari to coordinate a response. When the virus finally burned out, 3,000 Velthari warships were destroyed or too damaged to fight. War Prince Zelmoth's flagship was one of them. The prince died when his ship's reactors overloaded, taking 2 other vessels with him. The remaining Velthari fleet retreated in disorder. Daejung stood on his bridge and looked at the casualty reports. They had lost 300 ships. 300 ships and thousands of lives. But they had won. They had defeated the Grand Armada. News of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. Species that had been under Velthari rule for centuries heard the impossible. Humanity had won again. The Empire could be beaten. Rebellion started in the Outer Rim. The Morthani declared independence. The Xylox attacked Velthari supply lines. The empire that had stood for 12,000 years was starting to crack. And in the Imperial Palace, Emperor Krathnos made a decision that would define everything that followed. If he couldn't defeat humanity through conventional warfare, he would show them true terror. The message arrived at dawn. Admiral Daejung was drinking his morning coffee when his communicator buzzed with an emergency alert. He picked it up and felt his blood turn cold. "New Sol colony is under attack," the voice on the other end said. "They're using something we've never seen before." Daejung pulled up the live feed from the colony. At first, he didn't understand what he was seeing. There were no explosions, no plasma fire, just light. Bright, terrible light that seemed to come from the sky itself. Then he realized what was happening. The atmosphere was burning. "Get me, Mina," he said quietly. "Get me everyone now." In her lab, Mina watched the same feed and felt sick. "Atmospheric incinerators," she whispered. "We found references to them in the captured data. Weapons that were banned thousands of years ago. They superheat a planet's atmosphere until everything burns. The Emperor, he's using banned weapons. New Sol died in fire. 4 million people lived on that colony. None of them survived. 2 days later, humanity's Hope Colony went silent. Then Far Harbor. 14 million humans dead in 3 attacks. The galaxy watched in horror. Even species that had been loyal to the Empire were shocked. The Velthari had crossed a line that hadn't been crossed in 8,000 years. Emperor Krathnos made a public broadcast. His image appeared on every screen in known space. "This is the price of defiance," he said. Humanity chose to fight. Humanity chose to reject the Empire's mercy. Now humanity pays. Submit now, or I will burn every human world until nothing remains but ash. Director Hyojin watched the broadcast from Earth's diplomatic center. Around her, representatives from a dozen species sat in shocked silence. Then, one by one, they stood up. "We stand with humanity," the Krelith ambassador said. "As do we," said the Morthani. Others followed. The Emperor's atrocity had done what years of diplomacy couldn't. It had united the galaxy against him. But unity wouldn't bring back the dead. Admiral Daejung stood before what remained of Earth's fleet. His face was hard as stone. Behind him, images of the burning colonies played on repeat. 14 million faces, 14 million lives. The Emperor wanted to break us with fear, he said, his voice carrying to every ship. He wanted us to surrender, to bow down, to accept our place as slaves. He paused. Instead, he's shown us exactly who he is. He's shown us that there can be no peace with the Empire, no mercy, no middle ground. He looked at his officers, at the pilots, at the soldiers. We're going to end this. Not tomorrow, not next year, now. We're going to take the fight to their home system. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten Earth. Sir, one of his officers said carefully, the throne world is the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. We'd need to break through 3 defensive lines. We'd need to breach planetary shields that have never been penetrated. The casualties will be heavy, Daejung finished. I know, but if we don't stop them now, they'll burn every colony we have. Every human in space will die, so we go. And we go now. General Young-Soo coordinated the largest military operation in human history. Every ship that could fly was armed. Every soldier was briefed. Every resource was mobilized. This wasn't a battle. This was a war of extinction, and only one species would survive. The plan was insane. While the bulk of the human fleet attacked the Velthari defensive fleets, a small force would slip through and hit the throne world directly. It relied on luck, timing, and the enemy not expecting anyone to be that crazy. Engineer Jinho presented his final invention, a quantum tunneling device. It can create a gap in the planetary shield, he explained, but only for 30 seconds. And it might not work at all, and it'll probably explode after one use. And will it get our people through? Daejung interrupted. Maybe if they're fast. Good enough. Captain Ji-won was chosen to lead the ground assault. She was the best dropship commander in the fleet, known for getting her people where they needed to be under impossible conditions. Now she had to get 10,000 soldiers through a planetary shield that had never been breached. No pressure, she muttered to herself. The assault fleet left Earth on a Tuesday. Every person in the fleet knew they might not come back. They recorded goodbye messages. They wrote letters. They made peace with whatever gods they believed in. Engineer Jinho stood in his workshop and looked at the quantum device one last time. His team had built it in 3 weeks using technology they barely understood. It should be impossible. But humanity had been doing impossible things for months now. Commander Taewon led the special forces that would hit the Imperial Palace. His team of 200 soldiers were the best humanity had. They would need to be. The journey to the Velthari home system took 2 weeks. 2 weeks of preparation. 2 weeks of knowing that death was waiting at the end. When they emerged from hyperspace, the Velthari defensive fleet was waiting. 2,000 warships guarding the approaches to the throne world. All ships engage, Admiral Daejung ordered. The battle was brutal. The human fleet threw itself at the Velthari defenses with reckless abandon. They weren't trying to win. They were trying to create chaos to make the enemy focus on them. While the main fleets clashed, Captain Ji-won's dropships moved toward the throne world. They were hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids, drifting with the debris of battle. The Velthari scanners dismissed them as wreckage. They drifted for 6 hours. 6 hours of sitting in the dark, listening to the sounds of ships dying, knowing they couldn't help. Finally, they reached the planet's shield boundary. Engineer Jinho, this is Captain Ji-won, she said into her communicator. We're in position. Please tell me your magic box works. Thousands of light years away on Earth, Jinho activated the device. He watched the power readings spike into the red. The machine started shaking. Alarms went off. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, come on, come on." At the throne world, reality rippled. For exactly 30 seconds, a gap appeared in the shield. "Go, go, go," Jiwan screamed. 10,000 drop pods launched from the asteroids and screamed through the gap. They made it with 2 seconds to spare. The shield snapped back into place, cutting off one pod that was too slow. Jiwan watched it vaporize and tried not to think about the 20 soldiers who had just died. The remaining pods hit the atmosphere and began their descent toward the Imperial City. In orbit, Admiral Daejung received confirmation that the landing force was through. Now came the hard part, keeping the Velthari fleet busy long enough for Taewon to complete his mission. "All ships, maximum aggression," he ordered. "Make them pay attention to us." Commander Taewon's pod hit the ground outside the Imperial Palace. The building was massive, a city unto itself, protected by the Royal Guard. These were the Emperor's personal soldiers, the best the Velthari had. They had never been defeated in battle. "Let's give them a new experience," Taewon said to his team. The fighting was brutal. The Royal Guard were skilled and well-armed, but they had never faced humans before. They had never faced soldiers who fought with the rage of 14 million dead. Taewon's team fought their way through the palace gardens, through the outer halls, through the throne room approaches. Every meter was paid for in blood. In orbit, Squadron Commander Yuna spotted something on her sensors. The planetary shield generator, the only thing keeping Admiral Daejung's fleet from supporting the ground forces. It was heavily defended. Taking it out would require flying through a storm of defensive fire. No one could survive that run. Yuna thought about New Seoul, about humanity's hope, about Far Harbor, about 14 million people who never got a chance to fight back. "Seoul's pride to fleet command," she said. "I'm going for the shield generator." "Negative," her wing commander replied. "You'll never make it." "I don't need to make it. I just need to take the shot." She pushed her fighter to full throttle and dove toward the planet. Defensive fire lit up space around her. Her shields failed. Her hull started to melt. But she kept flying. She saw the generator ahead. She armed her missiles. She fired, then everything went white. The missiles struck true. The generator exploded. The planetary shield collapsed. In space, Admiral Daejung saw the shield fail. "All ships, move in! Support the ground forces." Commander Taewon reached the throne room. Emperor Krathnos waited inside with the last of his guards. The fighting was close and desperate. Taewon took a plasma bolt to the shoulder but kept moving. He had come too far to stop now. Finally, it was just him and the Emperor. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see how this would end. Commander Taewon stood in the throne room, his weapon pointed at Emperor Krathnos. Blood dripped from his wounded shoulder, but his hand was steady. Around them, the bodies of the Royal Guard lay where they had fallen. The Emperor sat on his throne, trying to maintain his dignity even in defeat. He was old, Taewon realized. Thousands of years old, kept alive by technology and pride. "You cannot win," Krathnos said. "Kill me and another will take my place. The Empire is eternal." Taewon shook his head. "Nothing is eternal. You taught us that when you burned our colonies." He moved closer, his weapon never wavering. 14 million people. 14 million lives ended because you couldn't accept that someone said no to you. They were primitives, insects, you all are. Then, these insects are bringing down your empire. Taewon keyed his communicator. Palace secured. "We have the Emperor." The words spread through the human forces like lightning. The Emperor was captured. The throne world was taken. The impossible had happened. Admiral Daejung landed his command ship in the Imperial City 3 hours later. He walked through streets where Velthari citizens watched in shock as human soldiers stood guard. Their mighty empire had fallen in a single day. He found Taewon in the throne room, still watching the Emperor. "He wants us to kill him," Taewon said. "He thinks death in battle would be honorable." "Then he doesn't get that honor," Daejung replied. He looked at Krathnos. "You're going to stand trial. Every species in the galaxy will see what you did. You'll answer for every world you conquered, every species you enslaved, every life you took." For the first time, the Emperor looked afraid. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Velthari Empire had fallen. The throne world was taken. The Emperor was captured. Species that had lived under imperial rule for centuries couldn't believe it. Many thought it was a trick, but then the broadcasts began. Humans transmitted images of the captured emperor, of Velthari ships surrendering, of the throne world under new control. It was real. Rebellions exploded across the empire. The Outer Rim declared independence overnight. The mid-colonies rose up against their governors. The core worlds descended into chaos as regional commanders fought each other for control. The empire that had stood for 12,000 years collapsed in 6 weeks. Director. Heejin stood in what used to be the emperor's throne room, now converted into a meeting hall. Representatives from over 100 species had gathered, the largest assembly in galactic history. They called it the First Galactic Council. "We didn't come to the stars seeking war," she addressed the crowd. Her voice was tired but strong. "We came looking for friends, for knowledge, for understanding. What we found was tyranny." She paused, looking at the faces, human and alien, former enemies and new allies. "But we also found something else. We found the Krelith who fought beside us when no one else would, the Morthani who sheltered our refugees, the Xylox who shared their intelligence, the dozens of species who risked everything to dream of freedom." A Krelith representative stood. "Humanity gave us something we had forgotten: hope. The Empire made us believe resistance was impossible. You showed us it wasn't. What do we do now?" a Morthani asked. "The Empire is gone, but the galaxy is in chaos. Warlords are seizing territory. Trade routes are collapsing. Without order, millions will die." Admiral Daejung stepped forward. "Then we build something better. Not an empire. A coalition. Species working together, protecting each other, sharing knowledge freely." It took 3 months of negotiations. There were arguments, disagreements, and moments when it seemed like everything would fall apart. But slowly, carefully, they built a new framework for galactic civilization. The Coalition Charter was signed on a Tuesday. It established free trade, mutual defense, and a council where every species had a voice. No more emperors, no more conquest. Just cooperation, Admiral. Daejung became the first fleet commander of the Coalition Defense Force. He stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the fleet, human ships flying alongside Krelith cruisers, Morthani destroyers, and vessels from 30 other species. "It's beautiful," his second-in-command said. "It's necessary," Daejung replied. "There are other threats out there, other empires. We need to be ready." Chief Scientist Mina established the Institute for Shared Technology in the ruins of the Imperial Research Complex. Scientists from across the galaxy gathered to work together, sharing knowledge that had been hoarded for centuries. "Imagine what we can accomplish," she told her team. "Humans, Krelith, Morthani, all of us working together. We'll cure diseases, build better ships, explore further than anyone has before." Her first project was adapting Velthari shield technology for peaceful use, protecting colonies from asteroids and solar radiation instead of plasma fire. Captain Hyun-soo, who had started this whole story by encountering the Velthari scout fleet, now commanded an exploration vessel. His crew was mixed, humans and aliens working side by side, venturing into unexplored space. "Think we'll find more hostile species out there?" his Krelith navigator asked. Hyun-soo smiled. "Probably, but we'll also find friends, and we'll be ready for both." Engineer Jin-ho rebuilt his workshop and focused on civilian technology. His quantum tunneling device, designed for war, was adapted to create safe wormholes for instant communication between distant worlds. "Weapons into tools," he said. "That's the real victory." The trial of Emperor Krathnos lasted 6 months. Every species that had suffered under the Empire sent representatives to testify. The list of crimes was endless: genocide, slavery, destruction of entire civilizations. The Emperor was sentenced to life imprisonment on a remote colony, guarded by soldiers from a dozen species. He would live to see the new galaxy that had replaced his empire. On Earth, a memorial was built for the fallen. 14 million names from the burned colonies, thousands more from the battles. Squadron Commander Yuna's name was there, along with all the brave souls who had given their lives for freedom. At the base of the memorial, an inscription read, "We did not seek this war, but when it came, we stood together." Director Hyejin stood before the monument one evening watching the sunset. A Krelith diplomat joined her. "Your species changed the galaxy," the alien said. "In 1 year you did what we couldn't do in 800. "We got lucky," Hyejin replied. "No, you were brave." "There's a difference," the Krelith paused. "Other species are calling you something now, the unbreakable ones. Heejin smiled. We broke plenty. We lost so many people, so many ships. We nearly lost everything. But you didn't, that's what matters. 5 years after the war ended, the first joint human-alien colony was established. They called it New Hope. 1 million settlers, humans, Krelith, Morthani, and others building a new world together. Commander Taiwan, now retired, visited the colony. Children played in the streets, different species, different colors, different shapes all together. It was the future they had fought for. An old veteran recognized him and saluted. Commander, we heard you were the one who captured the Emperor. Taiwan shook his head. I was just one soldier. We all did our part. But you started it. You told the World Council we should fight. I told them we had a choice. They made the right one. The veteran looked at the playing children. Was it worth it? All the death, all the sacrifice. Taiwan watched a human child teaching a Krelith child how to kick a soccer ball. Both were laughing. Yes, he said quietly. It was worth it. In the Coalition Council chambers, Admiral Dae-jung gave his final address before retiring. He was old now, tired from years of war and peace. When the Veltari came to Earth, he began, they expected us to bow. They had the bigger fleet, the better technology, the longer history. They had every advantage. Except one. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives. They forgot that freedom is worth fighting for, that dignity matters more than survival, that some things are worth any price. He smiled. They thought they were facing primitives. Instead, they found humanity. And that made all the difference. The council stood and applauded dozens of species, honoring the man who had led them to freedom, the Veltari themselves. Those who accepted the new order, slowly integrated into the coalition. Many were grateful to be free from the Empire's endless wars. They had been conquerors for so long they had forgotten how to be anything else. Now they could learn. Captain Hyun-soo's exploration fleet discovered its 100th new star system. They found 3 more inhabited worlds, 2 of which wanted to join the coalition. Trade routes expanded. Knowledge spread. The galaxy grew brighter. One evening, Hyun-soo looked at the stars and thought about that first encounter, when the Veltari had given Earth 30 days to surrender. It seemed like a lifetime ago. Captain, his navigator called. We're picking up a signal. It's from deep space. Unknown origin, Hyun-soo smiled. There were always new challenges, new dangers, new opportunities, but this time humanity wouldn't face them alone. The galaxy had changed. The age of empire was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it all started because one species, when told to kneel, chose to stand. Somewhere in a museum on Earth, a recording played on repeat. It was Admiral Dae-jung's response to the Veltari ultimatum, broadcast to the entire galaxy.